The thing that's so special about Ryan is it still kind of feels like a gigantic indie movie. You know, I think he wanted to come from a place that he knows, and you know, he's always been a very subjective filmmaker, which is also, I think, why we've always gotten along so well, because that's where I like to come from things too, is, you know, this is an experiential medium. You have a chance to sort of put an audience into your main characters, or whoever, you know, your character's shoes. And so he would have shot it single camera if he could. You know, this is in an industry where you look at like Avengers, and I think they have, you know, 12 cameras going at any given time. You know, we would have shot one camera if we could have. And so we sort of approached it from that standpoint. And we actually really only had 2 main cameras. Then obviously you apply the VFX component, and that's, you know, a learning curve for both of us, but it's fairly intuitive. Like, I was completely intimidated going into it because it wasn't anything I'd done before, and pretty quickly I realized that it's really just applying common sense, you know? Maybe that's all filmmaking is, really, is like mixing instinct and heart with common sense, and you can make a movie. I had no knowledge of them, really. Like, I was not the target audience. I think I had seen Iron Man, so I had to sort of re-educate myself completely, just to understand the world and the language. Oftentimes with films, you're referencing other films that everybody's seen, and that, you know, is sort of a jumping off point for the language. And with this, it was like I literally had to go into the backlogs of the Marvel universe, you know, and I was trying to understand just how to read a comic. Like, it's a different structure, you know, the way that they jump around, and I literally had to sort of learn a new language just to have a jumping off point from which to shoot from. You know, and compositionally, you know, things like Dutch angles that you avoid, you know, you spend an entire career avoiding, and then suddenly that's actually intricate to the language. Finding ways to work them in, and that won't take the audience out of their seats, but feels inherent to the language. I mean, you know, they weren't abused, but just knowing that that is sort of acceptable in the world of Marvel, or you know, saturated color palette, or, you know, there are all kinds of things that you take inspiration from, you know, the origin material. I went into it expecting the worst and actually found Marvel to be incredibly supportive. I think that they hired Ryan because he was Ryan, and they really tried to give him all the tools to do Ryan, you know. I thought that they were much more, you know, how can we support you guys as filmmakers, and not, they weren't trying to put limitations on us. I mean, there are natural limitations, you know, even bigger budget movies have their breaking points, and, you know, we would have pushed all of them if we could have, you know, so then you have to work together to find creative solutions to, you know, you can only have 40 background, you can't have 500, so okay, how does that work? And, you know, learning how to, you know, shoot sprites so that you can make 40 look like 400 and things like that. Like, every VFX movie approaches it very differently. You do need to know it quite well, but you can learn it quite fast. You know, Marvel is sort of known for liking to have some creative freedom in post. You know, they don't want to get married to certain things. There are plenty of movies that try to do as much in camera as they can, you know, and then just fill in the blanks with VFX, and that's not really the way Marvel approaches things. So you just, once you accept that that's sort of the sandbox that you're playing in, you can do anything within that sandbox. I mean, the biggest challenge on these films is usually continuity and day exterior work, especially when you're shooting, you know, in a place like Atlanta that's not, you know, you can't ever get 10 days of the same weather in a row. That was where LA came in handy, you know. I was introduced to Ryan by Elise McKimmey, who runs the Sundance Labs. She said, you should really meet this cinematographer, Rachel Morrison. And it was like director DP, love it, you know, first Skype, because it was actually a 2-hour Skype session at first. You know, unfortunately, Sound of My Voice was in the theaters, so he got to sort of see something I'd done there. And, you know, I think he was interested in my background in documentary for the film, and it was just the perfect kind of, you know, everything coming together. He has a real appreciation for cinematography and the camera work, and it's just such a nice jumping off point with the director when you come at it from a place of intrigue and respect. And, you know, I think we also try to push each other, you know, to think about things in a different way, and to explore different possibilities.